Ujayi, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show. My name's Catastrophe Fakara, and this evening we have the honor of having as a co-host our Zeshmi. So, Ujayi is Zeshmi.
Ujai Katasta.
So, just for those who don't know who or what Zeshmi is, and then we'll go into the first part because I'm quite happy to have Zeshmi co-hosting on the Wisdom of the Nile show this evening. Zeshmi, because I've used the name Zeshmi, if you just let us know what Zeshmi is or what it means.
Okay, Ujai everyone, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile radio show. Um, it's a pleasure to be here. I am here from Burkina Faso, West Africa, where I live. Um, Burkina Faso is the headquarters of the Earth Center organization. And Zeshmi is the title that I have within the Umtam schools. Zeshmi is a Medu word that translates to director or guide. Um, so, as I am the director of the Umtam schools, I'm referred to as Zeshmi. My name, though, is Nahez Meniu. Nahez Meniu. I'm a graduate of the Chicago Center. And it's a pleasure to be here. I was here when we first started to do Bless Radio, so it's good to see the progress that has been made and the initiates here pick up where we left off and carry it forward. So good to see the growing ambassadors of the culture here in London.
Okay, Duawo, and I'm sure we're going to have a warm show today with Zeshmi. So, the first part of our show is really introducing our listeners to the Earth Center. So, again, I'm going to just back to Zeshmi because who better than to introduce the Earth Center and what the Earth Center is about?
Okay, no problem. I feel like I got set up, but that's no problem. I'm happy to do that. Um, the Earth Center is a international organization. It's an international nonprofit organization, non-governmental organization. However, it's a very special organization because it is an organization that was initiated and sent out by the existing temples of Africa, traditional Africa. And for a long time, because of the turbulent history of Africa and what has been done to Africa and its legacy, how it's been under attack in the last few millennia, with the invasions into Africa, with the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, neo-colonialism. Um, those temples that were once along the Nile Valley, once the caretakers of the well-being of all of humanity and the planet and the earth, um, those temples had to really hide themselves and take their culture and their knowledge and their wisdom underground because invaders wanted what they saw to be the authority and the power that those temples had, that civilization had. And so those temples have been existing in secrecy, maintaining the knowledge, maintaining the language, maintaining the spiritual system. And just been watching. They really kind of said, okay, if you guys want the throne, the Nile, if you want to lead the world, take it. Let's see what you do with it. And they went underground and migrated west and further inland into the continent or deeper into the continent. And they just watched quietly. They showed a different face to the culture, made it more humble and now it is very easy to overlook people that have a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, a lot of spiritual wealth because they have they have hid themselves purposefully to protect this culture. So those same temples decided at a certain point that they now would send out an institution, really send out a messenger who would create an institution that would allow people who were seeking enlightenment, cultural reconnection, cultural restoration, allow them to return to the uh, traditional culture in all of its authenticity. And so in 1995, Nebnabala Musa Morodinabig was sent. He traveled to the United States to begin what now is known as the Earth Center. And the Earth Center is an umbrella organization consisting of sub-organizations. The first organization is the School of Kemetic Philosophy and Spirituality. That was actually the school that I was referencing when I talked about the Zeshmi title. The School is the school that we teach the original Kemetic initiations that were taught along the Nile Valley and later along the Niger Valley after the migrations. Within the school, the curriculum is extensive, but it's broken down into 3 subjects, the first being language and history. The original language of humanity is known as Medu. Most people know it as hieroglyphs. The second subject is meditation. We know it as Katibi, but it's meditation, the breathing exercises, body movements, stretches. And the third subject is the healing, Sunt. And the Sunt is traditional healing, learning about the body, the illnesses that affect the body, and some of the recipes and remedies that have been kept by the Kemetic culture in restoring the health of the body on all levels. The health of the person, not just the body, not just the mind, but the spirit as well, and the invisible aspects of the body as well. So those are the 3 subjects that we deal with in the School. That's the first branch. The second branch is the Ankasta Natural Healing branch, which focuses on healing, just as I was saying, the total healing of the human being, bringing the human being's body, mind, and invisible parts back into balance. There, we give a chance for people to have access to the recipes, the herbal products that have been maintained by the culture of West Africa, as well as the services, health consultations, health procedures, and the earth energy readings, divinations to check your energies and the spiritual aspects of your life and your destiny. It's very, very beneficial to have access to those traditions again because for me, I could just give a little history for me. When I met Neb Naba and I met the Earth Center and Ankasta Natural Healing, and I started to see what the herbal remedies can do, because in the West, I generally have we generally have exposure to herbs that are sold at herbal shops, herbal supplements, and those can range in potency depending on how they're harvested, et cetera, et cetera. But when I met Neb Naba and I saw that what he was doing was so potent, on a level of potency and effectiveness that I hadn't seen before, and then he was just so nonchalant about it.
And then he was saying, yeah, I mean, really, you guys call what you call here medicines, but if something doesn't work in 2 weeks to 3 weeks, why you call it medicine? And you guys stay on medication your whole life. Why is that called a medicine? That's a drug. And so this institution on Costa Natural Healing is really giving people a chance to return to the original ideas and traditions of medicine. And what you find is that it's not really plants that heal. It's not really you know all of that heal. It's tradition that heals. It's the body of wisdom and knowledge about how to mix plants, how to harvest them, how to prepare them, that heals. And so that's why you will see a drastic difference between just buying herbal supplements and working with a healer that has some knowledge and some tradition of how to prepare those plants, uh, dialogue with those with the energies of those plants to get the effect that they want. That's the Ancaster Natural Healing branch. And the third branch is Firefly Productions, which is a publishing house, which we utilize to create and disseminate the knowledge that is coming from the culture that has been kept. Some of the treasures that the culture has housed, like the original Code of Human Behavior or 77 Commandments, the original calendar of humanity, the original map of the sky for those who are into astronomy, and various other products, books, magazines. Um, so those are the three branches. And then we have a fourth activity that we really haven't been calling a branch, but we're really moving more and more towards that way, which is the charitable projects branch, what we call projects in Merita. And in that arena, we execute many projects throughout the continent of Africa to support these communities, these villages, these families that have been preserving this culture that is really so valuable to all of humanity. And they've been doing that in the uh, humble environment in the bush that they've been doing it. They've been doing that while the rest of the world is looking down on them, calling them, saying that they're in poverty. And what we really don't realize is that they choose to live that way because they're living closer to nature. But there are still some things that they can use, that we can support them with, building wells, installing clean water, closed wells, pumps, helping them with different farming projects just to expand the yield of their farming, to make sure that they get through periods of drought and dry seasons, extensive dry seasons. Also, we restore some of the infrastructure of the traditions, rebuilding temples, reclaiming some of the lands that are being lost because the traditional people just can't afford to keep them. So also we have another project where we are ensuring that cemeteries will be given to traditional people, because a lot of people don't know that the way that colonization moved forward in a lot of areas around traditional Africa, even though the way that religions converted people around traditional Africa, is they took over the undertaker business. They took over the funeral business. And so when they control how you bury a person, because death and burial is so important to traditional people, they really kind of have us in a bind. And so you'll have a lot of people that will say, okay, well, I'm Muslim as long as you're going to bury me properly. Because if you're traditional, then they really put shame on you when they bury you. So we're trying to take that very important institution to our lives back and ensure that people that are standing for the tradition, standing for their ancestral culture, are properly buried with the honor that they deserve. So those are some of the projects that we are doing, and that is a summary of a very extensive work that the Earth Center is doing around the world.
Okay, Dwao Hatini. I think we're having a little bit of technical issues, but we're working it through. Yeah, I certainly couldn't have given it as clear as that. So,
Sure.
definitely couldn't. I'm thankful for the work, as you've been saying, that the Earth Center is doing. And as you said, the Earth Center is self-funded, so you don't get any money from anyone else. All the projects that you just mentioned, the schools that we set up, that are set up across the world, it is all self-funded.
It is self-funded. However, those who hear about it, who hear about the mission, the work that we're doing, and wish to make a donation, we take private donations. We just don't take donations from governmental donations or donations tied to organizations that are with the government, because then you lose the autonomy of the organization. And considering the type of organization the Earth Center is and being tied to the temples, we just can't afford to do that.
Duao Hatene. Okay, so if anybody wants to contact the Earth Center here that we have in London, you can call us on 0207 175 4144. Now, we will be having a lecture at the London School in Leytonstone this Saturday, 6:30 to 8:30. And the title of the lecture is called Spirituality, Identity, and You. So if you want to know more about that topic, spirituality, identity, and you, or if you would like to just come and visit the school, see where the school is, know more about the Earth Center, the Kemetic School of Spiritual Philosophy, or if you would like to meet Nehez, because I know this is only a flying visit. He'll be flying out soon. That's why we had to grab him and get him here with us today. So we're thankful for that. So if you want to know more about the Earth Center, or you want to speak with the initiates to learn about the traditional Kemetic way of living, you can contact us on 0207 175 4144. And Saturday is actually the beginning of a series of lectures that will be running each month. So there'll be one this month. The next one is on the 15th of June. It's the importance of family, a Dogon perspective. And then on the 17th of July, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., that will be the following talk. And that will be on spiritual purification and Kemetic movements. And all events are £7 each. You can go on to justtickets.com and to look for the Wisdom of the Nile lecture series. And the school is based at 2121 Sunnyside Road. That's London E10 7BB. Or you can email the school at inquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org. Or you can go online to the website www.theearthcenter.org. Okay, so if you do want to contact us, those are the details as we listen to some more traditional Kora music. Ujayi. Ujayi, and welcome back to the Wisdom of the Nile show. We're in the second section of the show, which is the wisdom of the ancestors. We're going to play a CD by Nebnaba Lamusa Morondenebeg, the person who's responsible for bringing the Earth Center into the West. This is one of his CDs. And again, this is one of the things that we produce in-house. Comes under the Firefly production. It's a title called The Family Tree. We will only be playing a short section of it, but we just want to take in some of the wisdom of Neb Naba. So this CD is on The Family Tree.
Just trying to bring our perspective, the way we understand the world. So mostly we deal with different themes every month and like this. For those who didn't get them, please try to see every theme that we talked about, because it's to be like it's like a puzzle, really. You know, you want to have all the pieces, and the more you have pieces, the more you have a clear idea what the world is about. I'm going to welcome you again for being here, and then try to see how we can make a different paradigm perceptible from where we are now. I always tell people that they need to understand the difference between a winner and a loser. Trying to do something and not succeeding doesn't make you a loser. Getting somewhere without having to fight for it or go through all the challenge that leads there doesn't make you a winner either. So, there is no better winner than the person that went every step, challenged themselves every step, face every challenge, and then reach there. Then the person can call themselves a winner. Well, there is no worse loser, or call it better loser, worse loser, I don't know how you want to put it, but there is no perfect loser than the one that can come up with a reason why they're losing. The person that will come and explain why they're losing, or why they lost, or call it whatever you want to put it, that is a loser. Because explaining involves the idea of making it to make sense. Explaining involves the idea of what? Proving that your loss is acceptable, is reasonable, is whatever you want to put it. So really, a person that that spend the time explaining why they are on the bottom of a ladder, instead of trying to understand why that is not acceptable. That is a loser. It's almost like somebody is sitting. You tell them, hey, sir or mom, you're sitting in the mud. Get out of that. And then they say, well, you have to understand why I'm sitting in the mud. It's all, well, it's because I was a slave. My grandfather this, the world that. Hey, just get up. You see? So that's how you create a loser. That's why in every society we create, the society itself creates a loser. They create losers. They create those who really are very good and ingenious into explaining why they are a loser. And that fits the reason, that fits how people that have been known for the last, few centuries to be on the bottom of the ladder. And whenever people from the original culture try to tell them, look, that's not right, let's get up. And then they go, well, you understand, there is this going on, there is that going on, there is that going on, there is that going on. No, it's not about that. It's about changing. It's about changing. Really, wherever you are now, you have to understand it's just a result of a way of thinking and a way of living your life. Even a way of understanding your surrounding. That's what led you to where you are now. Which means if you want to be somewhere else, that will have to involve a new way of thinking, a new way of understanding your surrounding, a new way of dealing with the world. Okay. So what I'm talking about is very basic, but it looks like it is something revolutionary.
Words of from Nebnaba Lamusa Morandenibeg. Because we have our Zeshmi here with us, I am going to, put questions to you, Atini, because to be honest, we really want to make the most of you.
Of course, and I'm going to try to speak louder because we already got some complaints. I know I have a soft voice, so.
Okay. Nebnaba was, a gifted individual and a obviously one who cared for his people, why he even took the time to come out into the West, and understanding that there were those of us who had been estranged, taken away from our culture, from real knowledge of ourselves, and really opening doors that we really wouldn't have the opportunity to walk through, because I know his son Naba said, you can go to Africa, but that's not the same as going to Merita. And going on the pilgrimage with the Earth Center, you really see the difference. Being an initiate directly under Nebnaba, we have the opportunity to listen to the CDs and the DVDs that he's done, but you had been a direct initiate, the first thing I would ask is, could you really share some of what it's like to really have been taught directly by Nebnaba, and maybe even comment on some of the things that he was just sharing just now on the CD? Thank you.
I can try. To say he was a gifted individual is almost too small. One just can't speak about kind of the capabilities and the intelligence, the ingeniosity that he exemplified, that he presented to everybody around him. There's a lot of things that I can say about him, but if I have to talk about being an initiate of his, I would say that Nebnaba is probably the most patient person that I ever met. And that alone kind of gives some explanation to how he could be so intelligent and acquire so much wisdom, because with patience, the elders in Merita say patience is the medicine for life. And he was patient because when I arrived for orientation, for my initiation, for the classes, and he came up to me and he greeted me, he bowed to me. He was bowing to me to shake my hand. And I was like, what are you doing? In my head, I was like, what are you doing? But that's how he was with everybody. And I know some of the pictures out there do a good job to show that smile that he had that was really like very warm, and you can feel the care he had for humanity just through the smile. So that kind of patience that he had to keep that level of care for the human being in front of him, but for all human beings, even through all that human beings are doing to each other, even through all that human beings have done to each other. That was just amazing. And you didn't really see that falter. You didn't really see that go down. Even when you see he might use his anger or a presentation of anger as a tool to try to motivate you somewhere, you never saw a lack of care or concern in him. And that was there as an initiate. But what was different as an initiate is that it provided so much pressure. And not pressure in a bad way, and maybe the best word for it is not pressure, but so much force, so much motivation to be the best that you can be. Because in front of him and those eyes that show you how much he cares for you, it's not because of anything he's saying. It's not because of anything he's claiming to care for you, but just the way he look at you and the way he expects you to be the best you can be. That was really, really impactful, influential for me in my life, and the initiates I went through the process with, the brother that I graduated with, that really stuck out. I could see for us. But when I say there was that pressure, there was that really that force to not drop down below yourself. There was a good example, and a good example of that patience, and that patience he was also teaching his initiates to have. I was born and initiated in America. And as probably everybody knows, in America we have an issue that's now getting more publicity, but has been there um, uh, since the descendants of Africa were taken to America in the slave trade of the authority, the public authority, killing black Americans, and the public authority being unfair or, picking out black Americans to put the law on. And the brother that I was going through initiation with, that day he got pulled over by the police. And he didn't just get pulled over, but he got pulled over and they drew their guns on him. They said the car that was his was a car he stole. They told him to get out of the car. They put him face down on the street. They handcuffed him and his girlfriend, who was also our fellow initiate at the time. After it got sorted out, luckily it got sorted out. They saw that they made a mistake. They didn't say sorry, but they took the cuffs off of him. He got to go home. But as you can imagine, my brother was so upset. His patience was gone. And the first thing he thought to do, of course, was to call his master, the one initiating him, and the most powerful person he knew. I don't know what he had in his mind. I don't know what kind of, reaction he wanted to take, but he called our master, explaining what happened to him. And he called me as well, telling me to come to the school. He didn't tell me what happened, but he told me to come to the school. So when I arrived, both Master Naba and myself were sitting, listening to his report. And me being there, I was listening, and I was, just losing my patience, just sitting. It didn't even happen to me. And getting revved up, like, yeah, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Wow, I get to see what Master Naba can do now. And Master Naba looked at him and just started laughing at him. And said, why do you think he should respect you more than that? He said, what have you done in your life that you expect more respect than that? And both of us, our face just dropped.
Oh, no.
We said, huh? Like we were ready, like, okay.
Like, he's gonna do
we get to go in the healing room. This time it's not for healing. And Master Naba look at us.
What have you done?
You think you should get better treatment from him? Why? What have you done? He said, me. You know how much I've done. You know how much I've written. You know how much I've traveled. You know how many people I've helped. They can still treat me like that. So why do you think you should get more? What have you done? And it sobered us up to the point where it really, you can imagine our whole day was just like turned upside down after that. Then we had to leave the center. Really, he didn't kick us out or anything, but we were just dumbfounded. So we walked out talking about it between ourselves, like, can you believe that?
I'm sorry.
Like, what does that mean? And then we had to really face that I didn't do anything. It's only this colonization that make you think that you deserve something for nothing. You deserve some rights for nothing. The only reason that the system claims to give you some kind of right is to put you in control. And then you think you should have all of the civil rights and the same rights as everybody else, the equality that everybody else has that's under their domination. But if it wasn't for that, every human being coming to life has to prove something before they can be treated a certain way. And Master Naba was waking us up to that. And while he was doing that, he was showing us that he just had a lot of patience. Not for any person. That's the thing about patience, is we tend to distract ourselves with the people in front of us and specifically the people in front of us, and think patience is about a person. We think humility is about a person. We think being humble is about making yourself small in front of a person. It's about life itself. And when you saw the patience that Makaru had just for life, to not go, okay, I need to react against this person who I think did this to me, instead of what's the logic in it, in why I'm facing this in life. Because we came to life, we didn't choose to come to life. None of us said, I want to go. If we did, I don't remember doing it. And then we got here. So anything in life, it's free reign for us to face. We don't get to, just because what we have in our minds about ourselves, think that we too good not to face some things. And so that was what he was really reminding us, awakening us to so bluntly, and then reminding us to, instead of getting all emotional about it, why don't you put your energy into doing something that you can expect respect for? Because right now why do you expect respect? So that's one example. But that care that he had for everybody was really, really profound to watch. He once said that you can see in his life, from his homeland to the foreign lands he went to the land, of what we call the white man and all, he didn't have any ill will for anybody. That whole time he didn't have any ill will for anybody. He just wanted to bring the level of consciousness and behavior of humanity up. And he proved that in his life. So just watching that was very, very profound. I could keep talking. I can keep giving examples. Don't have me talk on the Makaru. I can keep going.
Okay.
But I will say this, that you've been initiated by his son.
Yes.
And I don't know if his son tells you these stories, but the Makaru, even for the birth of Naba Irita, came there and made sure that everybody called him the same name they call him. And that was because he knew, even from before birth, that's the one that's going to carry his legacy. So when he's there teaching you, initiating you, that's where the legacy resides. So you may not really know when the blood is speaking from Irita and when the blood is speaking from Neb Naba. So don't underestimate what you also are experiencing.
Well, it's actually an honor, and to have Naba as our teacher. So yes, we hear you. We are thankful to have Naba. 079-444-31366. If you want to get interactive, use this opportunity to ask Hatini Nehez the questions you couldn't done before. We're live on radio. Bless FM. Yes. So
I see you're using me, setting me up again.
I'm not.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah. The initiates hold, especially those who have been in their center a lot longer, they hold a lot of wisdom, and we are really thankful. And I myself remember seeing you come in here with Naba Irita Shenmira and Hatini Nakitem and Hatini Happy came with you, and just seeing the spirit in which you walked with, just seeing that energy, that alone, even if you hadn't given all the lectures and I hadn't been there, there's something in that is unsaid. It's not the words all the time that is spoken. It's beyond words, and that is what myself and many other people saw walking with you. And so we know it when we see it, so we really do give thanks for bringing the work here, continuing the legacy of Neb Naba, because for those who don't know, Neb Naba transitioned about 10 years ago now.
A little more than 10 years ago now. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate the words, and it is, he even told us that before he left. He said that his initiates, even going around the planet, even before you speak, people will be able to tell, because it's not the words, it's the work. And Neb Naba brought out of the temple culture of Kemet the temple culture preserved in West Africa, practical tools, procedures to do the spiritual work on yourself, to cleanse your spirit, to build your spirit, to build your intelligence. And so that translates even before you speak, even before you open your mouth, as long as you're actually doing the work. And that could be seen on him. And that's what I mean. Just in his eyes, you see that care, but you also see that cleanliness of spirit, that kind of enlightenment of spirit. And he had a number of stories about he would be traveling because he traveled extensively. He traveled to gain more wisdom, gain more knowledge, and he would be traveling through different villages, different areas where the group he's traveling with gets in big danger, big trouble. And nobody seems to treat him with any kind of malice. They see him and they even smile at him while they're beating everybody that's with him. But it's just that spirit that you see shining out of him. How can you attack that? And he was saying that's really your protection. That's really your biggest protection. I brought you the 77 commandments. If you take them serious, that's your protection. So it's really quite profound to had a chance to watch his him in person, even if, you know, for a short time. I can say it's a short time relatively, but I know to others, and especially other initiates, it's a very long time. But
he says looking out the corner of his eye.
But nonetheless, I'm very thankful.
Yes, you're listening to Bless FM, www.blessradio.org. If you want to get interactive, it's 079 444 31366. Ujayi, and welcome back, or welcome forward. We have a caller on the line. Just one moment, caller. Hey, Ujayi. Let's see if we can get you, make sure we can hear you clearly. Caller, just give us one moment, because we are going to have the proverb of the week, which we didn't do at the top of the show. So Hatinehez, could you give us a proverb that the people can take away with them if nothing else they get from this show?
Yes, I can try. Actually, while I was listening to the clip of Master Nava's speech about or the build up to his family tree speech, a proverb came to mind, and it's really kind of proverbial wisdom, kind of a proverbial riddle that our elders asked us in the temples this past pilgrimage that we just took. Every year in the Earth Center, we take initiates, members, friends, supporters, family home to the temple culture of Kemet, and we tour the temples for pilgrimage, an annual pilgrimage. That is also one of the requirements of the Kim. And this year, one of the elders gave us this proverbial wisdom. He said, when we talk about suffering, which one suffers more? The cow, the horse, the donkey, or the camel? I'm going to let you answer, Katasta.
Any guesses?
I have the cow, the horse, the donkey, or the camel.
Yes.
Suffers in what way? Just suffers?
However, whatever way
Oh my gosh.
you want.
The cow, the horse.
Don't worry, even when the elder asks us, none of us got it right. So
I don't know.
He said it's the donkey because the donkey is the one that chooses it. The donkey, you know, is known to be stubborn, is known to go back to suffering. Every other animal that I named, they will go wherever they need to go, but the donkey will always return to suffering. So that's something that really our people have to really think about and face. We can't keep returning to what hasn't served us in the past, to where we find our suffering in the past. You know, even in my account of what happened to me and my brother when he was complaining about the police to our master, it's like we continue hoping on the police. They've been doing that since we came over there. You can't run back to suffering and then complain about it. Then you are going to suffer the most. Why will you complain? You enjoy it. So our people have to wake up from that.
Wow, Hatni, wow for that. So that's the wisdom of the proverb of the week. We have a caller on the line. Ujayi caller, greetings.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so. I just want to make sure that we're hearing you loud and clear. Okay, can you give us your name, caller?
Yeah, Ujayi Kasati.
Ujai Kasati.
Ujayi Hatane. Just a question. You mentioned that you now live in America and you were born and grew up in United States. I just wanted to ask a question. It's something I saw today. It said, if we wait until we're ready, we'll be waiting for the rest of our lives. I know that many people are waiting to be ready to return home. I'm not sure what we actually waited for, if it's finances. Most of us will never get there. So could you explain or give us an impetus that could drive us forward to make that move?
Yes, Sister Duao, thank you for the question. That's an excellent question and comment. Whatever I will say will just be echoing what you already pointed out. You will notice that we tend in our life to, with all of the big feats of our life, to claim those kind of things. Well, I have to do it when I'm ready. Who is ever ready to have children? Who is ever ready to be married? You can't be ready before it happens because the experience is what allows you to face it and then find out what it is. Before you find out what it is, there's no way to be ready. So it's the same with that. And generally, I had the same thoughts pass through my mind. am I ready? I could use more money before I do it. Um, is this the best time, et cetera, et cetera. Even talking to people in my family having the same concerns. But at the end of the day, you will always have those concerns. You will always have a reason to push it back further. But since I was very young and I learned about the transatlantic slave trade and the experiences of our ancestors, and the fact that, I was I was a descendant of people who were enslaved, whose name, whose language, whose culture was taken from them, and they were even known, their identity even became slaves. People aren't supposed to be known as slaves. You can be enslaved, but you're not supposed to be a slave. And when you hear about black Americans, that's how you hear them referred to. And for me, even as a young person, it just made sense. Well, if when we met slavery, we met all of these things, the West, colonial religion, colonial language, colonial lifestyle, even colonial success. We didn't know that before slavery. So me going further into that is just perpetuating the slavery. It's better I go back to what I had before. And even as a youth, as a child, as a youth, as a youth, I was thinking about that. So when I have the opportunity to get out of slavery, how can I not be ready? It's just that simple. How can you claim that you need to prepare more if you have an opportunity to leave slavery and return to what your ancestors were doing before? It's not even really for you to be ready. It's still the wish and it's still the wish and the desire of those ancestors that are living in you. So you being ready or not, or even considering if you're ready or not, is just getting in the way of them.
Yeah, so I was
That was an excellent question, Sen. And yeah, as you said, to make that move, because we get so tied to here, it's a difficult one. And I know you have your family as well over there, so it wasn't just you, but your family, your children, and now they've left the American school and they're now being schooled in Merita. How has that been to be able to adapt them? I'm not sure the ages, but that transition for even the children, because many people out there have families, and that might be a concern of theirs.
Yes. Well, my children range in age from 1 to 11. And the transition for them was easy. However, they have they had all been to Africa before on pilgrimages, except for maybe the 1 year old, and so they had experienced it. They also didn't go to school in the West because me having that awareness growing up. I wasn't sending my children to the same person that was enslaving and conditioning me and my parents. So I was homeschooling them, and they were being homeschooled from Earth Center to Earth Center. So I can only imagine and be grateful that that made the transition smoother. However, they did go into school in Africa, colonial school in Africa. I even put them in the, colonial school in Africa because that's where I know they would have now the education of the world of children, the world of school children. And that they've all really enjoyed that. They've all really accepted that, taking it with two hands, even the challenges. But it's still, as parents, you can never go to sleep. So you will still have to hear what they're learning, fix the colonial stuff, fix the different paradigm, because just because you are in Africa doesn't mean people don't want to be colonially successful, don't want to chase what the carrot that the colonial society is dangling in front of us. So you still have to always make sure that you are attending to the consciousness of your children and what is they're being exposed to
to make sure you bring some balance with, you know, what you are exposing them to from your own culture, from your own family history.
Just to take that one step further, how were they able to deal with the language issue? Because obviously, English, being English, but in Burkina, it's French and the traditional language. How were they able to make that transition?
Actually, what we did, they were homeschooled, but the grade level that they really were at, the grade they just finished before, as we were leaving, they went back into that grade once we got there, so that it wouldn't be kind of like two burdens on them at once. We knew they would have to be learning the language. They're in class where the entire time they're speaking French to them. If they're lucky, their teacher might be able to speak some English. I think one of the three that I have in school had that situation, but even that teacher spoke very little English. So with the fact that they were facing the new experience of the language, we put them in the same grade, so that, and even the school suggested that as well, so that they would have that familiarity while they're learning the language. So now, after a year, they all speak and understand their teachers pretty well, the lessons pretty well. They all have, you know, excelled in their class.
Wow.
So after some time, we will see, you know, how we can move about, because we still continue kind of moving with them outside of class, so that they don't also fall back in the curriculum that they were learning, the level they were learning at.
Wow. Kasati, is there any other questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, there is actually. Going back to slavery, I tend to not say that my ancestors were slaves. I say they were captives of war, prisoners of war. What I've noticed, those that tend to call themselves or their ancestors slaves, they don't look beyond that. The ones that believe that they're now woke are starting to call themselves gods and goddesses without understanding what the word actually means. So, could you explain why we should not be taking on those titles? Instead of, we're actually using those titles instead of the N-word for the ones who are now woke. So if you could explain, please, Hassani, why we should not be calling ourselves, because I don't believe we should be calling ourselves gods and goddesses.
Yes, okay.
And can I listen off air? I'll listen out, yeah?
Okay.
No problem, sis. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for the questions. Yes. This is always something that any new group of initiates that I'm initiating, I always bring up and kind of poke fun at them for, or poke fun at us for, in the West. But what you tend to see in the West is, as we are coming out of or waking up out of the slumber that colonialism and subjugation puts one in, is we tend to try to honor our culture, but because of our ignorance or our limited knowledge and awareness of our culture, we end up really disrespecting it. And that's just something that comes with more experience, and the only way you get around that is by being humble. And if you're calling yourself a god, there's no way that you're being humble. But what I mean by that is, now you will see some people call themselves gods. You will see some people take a weekend class or workshop and then call themselves priests and priestesses. You will see some people call themselves kings and queens. Even say that the reason I like jewelry so much is because I'm a king. All of these things, where it's just kind of like their ignorance talking. You can't even really be upset with them, because it's just their ignorance talking. But at the same time, you would just wish that they would consider the fact that your culture, your ancestral culture, were valuing those positions for a reason. They were holding, a king was a king for a reason, because of the responsibility, the weight he had on his shoulders. A queen was a queen for a reason, because of the responsibility she had on her shoulders. So for us to belittle them and hand them out freely, it just marks our culture down. And we want to think about that. In the tradition, to be called a priest, you have to study for many years. You have to study for at least, you have to go through just initiation for at least 7 years. And then you have to follow another priest for over 10, 20 years. So to think I can do it in 7 days or even 10, 20 days is ridiculous. And then it just marks down all of the work that all of my ancestors put in to achieve that title, to achieve that responsibility, that level of responsibility. And then if we even take that conversation to God, the easy answer to that is that we have to clean our butt. A God doesn't have to clean their butt. A God doesn't have to brush their teeth. A God doesn't have to do any of that. If you want to glorify our past, you can find many ways to do that without dishonoring or being blasphemous against a being that is pure in nature, in the existence, and equating it to us who we know we're impure. Even if we want to think that our heart is pure and our mind is pure, because you haven't had a good enough master or teacher to show you that it's not. Neb Naba was very good at showing us that it wasn't. You know that you have to wipe that butt. You have to clean your mouth. You have to clean your underarms, or else people are going to run away from you. Gods don't do that. That's as simple as I can put it. There are many things that could be said, but that's as simple as I can put it. So a human being is a human being. A human is a human. There's a lot of pride we can have in being a human if we're doing it well, if we're putting our energy into it, where we don't have to go disrespecting other entities that aren't like us.
079-444-31366. If you want to get interactive, I'm speaking with Nehez Menu, and he's sharing some of the wisdom of the traditions. Now, Kasati asked a real good question, actually, and we covered the challenges for the children with the language. How have you as an adult dealt with that? And the reason why I ask as well, I was just in Togo and spending some time with, a healer and spending time in the compound. My biggest challenge was communication. I wanted to share so much with my people, and, we could just look at each other, but we couldn't. It was challenging. The ancestors did open the door and allow somebody who was English speaking to be there during certain times when I was there, but that's not always going to be the case. So in living there, especially in a place that's a francophone, that was governed by French, how have you and your wife and others who are there been able to overcome that challenge, and even the traditional language?
I'm glad you brought me back to that question, and you went straight for where the real challenge lies for the adults, because the children pick it up fast. Even now, my oldest children are correcting me and my wife, even translating for me and my wife with other people. Even you'll see them listen to our French, our attempt, and then they will kind of roll their eyes and go, "Oh, just let me do it." So that is where the challenge is. And I'm glad you brought me back to this question, because I didn't mention that in the homeschooling that I was doing, and even the homeschooling we're continuing to do, most of that is my wife.
Right, okay,
so,
that makes sense.
Gratitude to my wife for that hard work that she's putting in. But me and my wife are challenged with the language difference. But you just work with it. What really is a blessing and a curse at the same time for us, and specifically for me. I don't want to speak for her. Is that we are in the Earth Center community, and a number of initiates in the Earth Center community can speak English. And so I can always utilize them, even if I'm out in the city. We in the cell phone age, I can just call one of my brothers who speaks English better than I speak French, and then put him on the phone with the person I'm trying to speak with. But I say that's a curse because
you don't push to.
then you can easily slow down in your push to learn the language. But yeah, it's very challenging, and I must say that francophone, you tend to see people that speak French they're sticklers for pronunciation too. So if you're not pronouncing French properly for them, it's like they don't even want to speak French. They rather just try to speak English with you. So that it has been a challenge for both my wife and I in learning the language, but we get in this step by step moving forward. Same with the traditional languages. You get them step by step. When people see you trying to speak traditional language, they are more excited than when they see you trying to speak French, because, like I'm saying, there's just certain characteristics of colonization and colonial influence, and French speakers really like to hear proper French pronunciation. And the American tongue takes a while to have proper French pronunciation. So a lot of times we just get the French cut and it goes back to English. So, but yeah, all we can do is, our master used to say, if you find yourself in the ocean and you don't see land, what else can you do but swim? So,
079-444-31366 if you want to get interactive. Zero 079-444-31366. You're listening to the Wisdom of the Nile show. If you want to get interactive, that's the number to get interactive on. If you want to come to the school on Saturday where we have a lecture, Spirituality, Identity and You can come to the school or let me give you the telephone number first. It's 0207 175 4144. That's 0207 175 4144. We will be having a lecture there this Saturday, the 18th. It's on spirituality, identity, and you, and that is at 21 Sunnyside Road. That's London E10. 6:30 to 8:30. And just to say as well, we did have last week, we spoke about an event that we were going to have in Coventry. We did have that event in Coventry. It was a wonderful day, and you know, we asked the ancestors and the deities to continue to help the school grow, and to let those people who are coming into initiation really see what we are seeing, and they will do once they walk into the doors of initiation. That we do know, once you walk through the doors of initiation, you will get the wisdom of the ancients. So we're on the Wisdom of the Nile Soul, 0794443136. We are speaking with Nehez Menu, who is the Zeshmi. So we were just talking about his transition to Merita, Burkina Faso, the challenges he and his family are having to face with that transition. But what are some of the benefits that you've actually found making that transition, Hatini?
Well, the benefits are plentiful. For myself, and even I can see for my wife, just the change in pace. You know, the pace of living in nature, living in a society that is not as colonial, because we are in the city. But even when we say we're in the city in Africa, for those who have not been to Merita, to Africa, the city still, you see nature all around you. You can be sitting on the street and you see a herd of cows pass by with their herder behind them. It's a different city than we know. So the pace is much different, and just getting out of the grind of city like London, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, those big cities that move on that very, colonial pace, very tick-tock pace. That does a lot just for the spirit and just the heart, just to kind of calm yourself, to recalibrate your rhythm to nature. So that's really beneficial in a way that's kind of beyond what I can put well into words. But I also see a big benefit on my children. One, because they are going into, as I said, they went into school, and so they have the education that just comes from, not necessarily the education from their teachers, but the education that comes from interacting with children in the society of children, the world of children. You know, they had a lot of interaction with children in the earth centers and our communities and things like that. But when they're on the school ground, and then you deal with bullies, you deal with children, how they act when they're away from teachers, all of that is a big education. And I see a lot of growth in my children facing those experiences. Also, because we are there, we live in the city where the children go to school, where we have a place, but then we also can leave the city and go into the village, go to the temples, and that is a huge benefit just for the exposure that it gives the children, gives even the adults. To be able to do that, to be able to see the values that the village has kept, the quality of life, the human quality that the people have, that same type of shining that I was talking about with Nemnaba, that warmth that the village has. Having them experience all of that is very, very, I just feel very blessed, very grateful for that. Even when you go into a village and you're received by that village, you're received by an entire family. You're received by not just one family, but a bloodline, many families from the same bloodline living together, and then all coming out to receive you. that doesn't, you don't really get to see that in the West anymore. I know in some places in the South in America, you used to have that more, but with the rat race, you just see it getting broken up more and more, and now you only see that in the times of family reunions or funerals or things like that. But you don't see just families living with each other, being autonomous, self-governing, doing everything for themselves, being self-sufficient. So to have my children get to see that, that's a huge education in itself as well. And that was really one of the big reasons that I went, that I wanted to make that move, especially once I started having children. It was like then there was a fire burning underneath me to go, because that's really what, being human is about, and we're losing that, chasing what humans have created with money and wealth and things like that. We're losing that kind of very humanness that we used to have, and that our brothers and sisters in the villages still have. When you see the family structure there, how tight the family stays, because a lot of people don't know, even their family structure is different. How they refer to the people, how they refer to their relatives. In the West, we tend to only have one father, one mother. We might have a stepfather, a stepmother. In the village, they have so many fathers they can't count, so many mothers they can't count. Then they have uncles, they have aunts, they have all of that. And then they have brothers where they can't count them. I remember Nebnaba and I were on the West. We took a lecture tour through the West Coast of America, and we got to visit some of my family I grew up with. And at one of the houses of my mother-in-law, actually, he was sitting there in the kitchen, and they were asking him how many. He started talking about his village, and he said something about his brother, and I think actually it was my father-in-law. He said, "How many brothers do you have?" And then I would look down and kind of laughed. He said, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And then he said, "No, what? How many you have?" I know a lot of big families. He said something like that. He said, maybe 10,000. And then my my father-in-law looked at him like, huh? But he's talking about the traditional brother. So if you can imagine having thousands of brothers, thousands of your family members that you even call somebody as close to you as a father or a brother that you know about, and then they all providing a system that you belong to. We just don't know that in the West. So that's a huge, huge benefit, and that's a huge goal that even, coming back into the culture, those of us who have been disconnected, we can have to set our sights on that, to really start to build our families once again, to be able to attain that kind of structure, that kind of harmony, that kind of unity. So that's a big blessing.
Well, Hatini, right, so we're still saying that they're having some technical issues in terms of hearing us. I'm not sure what's happening there, but we will just check something, get back to you. 079 444 31366. Actually, as I'm saying the number, we've got a caller calling in. Greetings, Ujai caller.
Ushayi, I'm bothering you again.
Hi, Ujai
You know,
Kasati. No, you're not bothering, you're interacting, and we love that.
I know, I know. Actually, in head,
Yes, Ujai, sister.
yeah, Ushayi, I just wanted you to explain the meaning of your name and explain to the listeners the importance of a name. Because many people, as we know, are changing their name from European names to African sounding names without understanding the name you put on yourself does have consequences. So, if you could explain the meaning of your name and the importance of our initiatic names and how we arrive at them, please.
Hey, dua or
Yes, sister, do for the question.
I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen on air. Yeah.
okay.
Iriru.
Ere.
Okay, my name is Nahez Meniu. It is the name I was awarded at the graduation from the Peronk level of initiation. Traditionally, after finishing an initiation, one is renamed because with initiation, you are being reborn into a culture. In Peronk, you are being reborn into life, the house of life. And for myself specifically, the name Nehez, which was given to me, is a Medu name, hieroglyphs, and it really has a double meaning. Um, it can have multiple meanings, but primarily it has a double meaning. If you use it as a verb, it means to awaken, and if you use it as a noun, it means it means a guardian or one who takes care of something. And then the generation or group of people that I graduated with, we received a name together, and that's my last name, Meniu. The translation of Meniu means shepherd or one who takes care of something. So the first and last name in some way kind of reflect the same notion, and then Nehez also carries the notion of to awaken or to awaken oneself. So as you see, even when I brought the proverb, I brought it about cows and donkeys and things that one would tend to herd because it's just in me. But yes, the name is so important. But really, a person will have many names in life, even in the traditions. A person will have many names because you tend to go through many initiations, and you tend to go through many awakenings. So I wouldn't even really um, uh, discourage anybody from leaving their colonial name behind. I definitely agree with Kasati. Consider the importance that a name has, really for Kemetic people in the Kemetic traditions, for our ancestors. The name is even a part of the human being, like the body, the mind, the spirit, the heart, the name. And there are others, but that's how important the name was seen. So to just like the way something sounds and then want to put that on your child when you don't really know the energetic quality or influence that will have on your child's destiny, that can be very risky, dangerous. So also consider that for yourself, for those who are in the process of awakening and wish to have another name. The best way to do it, of course, is to go through an initiation, especially one that's tied to the temples, because the names are given based on a divination that is done for the identity of the spirit that has went through the initiation, where that spirit is coming from, even before their birth, coming back to this life, what they're being born for, what the destiny they're going to face in that life. So all of that is kind of considered, is investigated, and then considered to give you a name so that when you're even called by that name, it's reminding you of the destiny and the path you came to march down, to progress down, to advance down as a spirit. In addition to that, it is also what's going to live on after you. Your body will only live on so long, even when you're gone. Just like, you know, with your own dead relatives, with your own ancestors, your grandparents, you call their names still. Even you get in a bind, you call on them with their names. So that's how important the name is. So make sure that we really have to make sure that we're considering that in even setting up our next generations to be in a better position than we are, to give them a name that really fits what they're trying to achieve so that we can see progress from generation to generation.
Dual for that question again, Kasati. Okay, Hatani, I have a question. Well, it's more to get your perspective, your understanding or overstanding. So I want to put it back into how we perceive the divine world. And most people in the West, unless they're following a traditional way of life, the image of God that they have been given is a monotheistic one, is one where you worship one God. And I know for many people that is the challenge, that where does this concept of more than one God, how do you, after you've just been schooled that, you know, there is one God and, you know, it's one almighty God and, you know, then to move to this concept of many gods, you know, a God of this, a God of that, a God for this. Sometimes that, right, we're having a little bit of feedback, not sure where that's coming from, but okay, hopefully we've solved it. That transition is challenging for many people, just to get their head around that. I know it was for me personally. What would you have to say about this concept of monotheism v this concept of polytheism?
It's a good question. It's a question that I know is haunting to a lot of people. Just that.
That's the word, haunting.
That notion. And really, I don't know if there's anything that I can say to make it less haunting, because the truth is that we just have to remember where we're coming from, where we're standing. When we look at history, our ancestors weren't treated well to get us to this point. Our ancestors weren't allowed to face life and say, how do you see life? What's your perspective on life? What did your parents teach you about life? And which way do you want to go that's best for you? We know they were enslaved. We know they were tortured. We know their ways were beaten out of them. So we have to face that first, and we have to know that. In addition to that, if you know that, and if you know that that's what was done to them, and now you can see that on some level, your government, the place where you're born in the West, they value you as a commodity. They want your labor. They want you there. They don't want you to leave because you serve them. You make money. It makes more money for them. You spend money with them. Even you standing as a citizen is one more citizen under their rule. So they benefit. In a conditioning process, nobody teaches you so that you can leave that conditioning easily. So if you're trying to get out of what we're in, it's going to be hard. And the education made it so that it's hard. Made it so that you will really, so that hopefully you will never be able to do it. That's what we have to understand. If we now want to change our names back to
our ancestral names, if we now want to change our lifestyle back to our ancestral lifestyle, if we now want to change our perspective back to our ancestral perspective, you've received the education even before your mind could think. We call 7 the age of reason. You were in school before 7. You were speaking a language foreign to your ancestors, to your blood, before 7. You were given that conditioning, that training, so that if you wanted to try to get out of it, you wouldn't be able to. Everybody has to understand that. So you hearing that, okay, I've been taught my whole life there's one God, and they telling me that my great-great-great-great-grandfather said something different, it's supposed to be hard for you to face that. And it's supposed to be even harder for you to now try to change your perspective to your great-great-grandfathers. That's what colonization is. That's what subjugation is. That's what conditioning is. Now, if you want to ask me if being in Merita, if in my experiences, I see that there are many gods according to our people that didn't leave their homeland, that didn't leave their culture, I see it. That's clear. But if you're asking me, can I make that easier? I can't. Like my master used to say, when you stick a knife in somebody's back, once you pull it out is when it hurts more. That's what we in. Right now, the knife is in our back. We find ourselves in the West. We find ourselves in a position we don't know what our name was. We don't know where our village was. We don't know what language we spoke. We don't know any of these things. The knife is dug deep in our back. Now, when it comes out, it's going to hurt worse than it hurts now because you're used to it being in the back. Now it's going to be moving coming out of your back. If you try to get out of the situation you're in, it's going to hurt worse. You're going to be tormented. I can't save you from that. But if you want to know, before my ancestors were enslaved, before they were captives, did we have multiple gods? Yes. That's why they lived in peace, to be honest. Because when I go to those villages and I say the whole family comes out for me, and I say the whole family comes out to greet their guests, this village over here worships and honors one God with a certain name. And then they might take me to another village. They honor and worship a different God. And there's no disrespect between the two of them. There's no competition. They're all happy to get to go to another village and then honor another God because that God is that same type of pure that the other God was. And us, we still wipe our butt. We still have to clean our butt. As the human beings, whether we in this village, that village, or this one, we all have dirtiness we have to clean. And those gods all have purity they get to keep. So if we get a chance to experience another God, even send our wishes to another God, another divinity, then it's just our benefit. It's only now that we have this idea that we should be the ones fighting against each other for these pure beings, and then to carry the flag of our chosen one. And if we look in history, we can see we've done that and spilled so much blood for it. I don't know if that's more godly than you going to another village and then seeing a different God and having the thought that, wow, this is a huge opportunity for me because my family doesn't worship this God. My family doesn't serve this God. My family doesn't give gifts to this God or send wishes to this God. So now I get to send wishes to a God that deals with something else. That's a benefit for me. And that's how it was really looked at for our ancestors. And that brings, again, more harmony, more unity, more humanity between different people and their differences. Where now we're in a situation where we fight each other, we fear each other, we hate each other for our differences. There's a way that we got to that point. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, I think it was last week or the week before, we played an audio that was done by some Europeans when they went to Dogons in the Mali, and it was interesting. And I remember my son picked up on that. The commentator said that theft, murder, it was unheard of in their village. It just wasn't something that was even contemplated, and it shows you, and these were supposed to be the primitive people, but it shows you where the level of humanity. And when we're talking about humanity, and you've mentioned the human, and this came up at the on the lecture last week, and this was the questions that most people ask, and it was this whole question of a human being. What is a human being? Because you said, to be a human being. But most people think, well, if I'm alive, I'm a human being. So what do you mean, being a human being? What does that mean?
Okay. Well, yes. Okay. I wanted to go there, but you had said something else that made me want to come back. But I won't. I won't go backwards. Let's go forward. When we even talk about this idea of polytheism, that's even one of our commandments, that you can't go disrespecting the gods of a city, because different cities have different gods. So you can't go into another city and then disrespect them because of their god, or disrespect that god because it's a god. You're a human. That I'm referencing the 77 commandments, because the 77 commandments, the original 77 commandments, is better known as the code of human behavior. And even when I heard that, even when I saw that, even when I ordered the poster, even before I got into school, I saw that it's titled the Code of Human Behavior. That means that there's rules for being a human, and there's rules for having a behavior that you can call human. So if you don't meet that, then, something is defined and has its limits and its territories, so that what fits in those territories is what you consider that thing. If you're outside of that territory, you can be considered that thing. That's just logic. I know now we're in a world where you can have the limitation and the definition of a man but still think you're a woman. You can have the limit and the definition of a woman and still think you're a man. Now we're turning logic on its head, and that's why everybody's free to go the way they want to go. But nature and the existence functions on order, and order is just based on limitation. So for our ancestors, that was also, aside from the Code of Human Behavior, the Great Book of Divine Ordinances, the 77 Commandments, we also call those our forbidden territories. Because if I cross one of those commandments, now I leave the territory that it means to be human. So just because we're born doesn't make us a human. We have to earn that, because our ancestors made certain vows to say they're going to be good. They're going to be a certain way. So now we have to fit that certain way to be a human, to receive their legacy that they left. It's the same way as the story I was telling you about our master, which was a big message that he was bringing to his people, is that just because you're born into life doesn't earn you respect. It doesn't earn you consideration. You can't keep going to the person that enslaved you, that you scared now to even leave his one God, because even though you know your parents did something different, you're scared to leave his one God, and then you tell him respect you. Why should I respect you? You don't even have the courage to be yourself. Why do you deserve respect? So again, there's this order that is in the existence, and human beings, because we have this ability to reason and this ability to kind of get lost in our imagination and our utopia, we want to leave reason in order, but really that is what the existence is based on, order. So
that order, there's a definition for what it means to be a human. There's a definition for what it means to be a god. There's a definition for what it means to be, you know, a man, a definition for what it means to be a woman. All of this order and these definitions is what you go through an initiation for, is how you need to be initiated back into life to get these definitions that your ancestors have stockpiled and kept in their banks of wisdom. So that's how I can answer that one.
Wow, 07944431366, but actually we're almost right at the end of the show, so I don't think there's any time to call. But if you would like to hear more from the Earth Center, you can come to the temple on Saturday. We have a lecture, Spirituality, Identity and You. That's at 21 Sunnyside Road, Leytonstone, E107BB. Telephone number 0207 175 4144. That's 0207 175 4144 if you want to contact us. I want to thank Hatini Nehez for sharing his experiences and his wisdom with us this evening. I will be listening again to the show so that I can pick up, because there's always so much more to pick up. Is there any parting words you would like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I want to thank you for having me. I appreciate the gratitude, but may our master thank both of us for doing our best to carry the flag forward. This great wealth that he brought out of the bush into the West. Those who have touched it have seen how valuable. We've got a glimpse at how valuable it is, and we know we have to keep pushing while we still have energy to make sure that more people can experience it. So if you are listening tonight, or if you hear this later on the recording, please look into your ancestral heritage. Please look into the Earth Center, not because it owns the truth or it's the only place you can find it, but because speaking from my perspective, I know that it is tied to the temples and therefore a structure that has worked to preserve humanity, human society, human dignity and quality for thousands and thousands of years. And we can all look around the world and see that that's what we're hungry for. That's what we need now. That's what we need to be able to pass to our children. So thank you for having me. Very happy to see the London Initiates continuing this radio show to get the message out to the people.
You've been listening to the Wisdom of the Nile show. I'm Katasta Fakara, and in the studio with me today was Zeshmi Nehez Menu. We look forward to seeing you again next week.